Have you ever wondered what the last digit of your birth year means? Is it just a number, or could it be the secret to your future? The voice echoed, soft yet powerful, as the camera panned across the bustling streets of New York City, capturing the relentless flow of life. From the busy commuters to the neon lights flashing in the distance, everything seemed ordinary, yet the question hung in the air like a whisper, mysterious and urgent. What if I told you, the voice continued, that the last digit of your birth year could hold the key to your destiny? And not just any destiny, a destiny so profound, so unexpected, it could change the way you see your life forever. The screen flashed with images of one of the most well-known figures of our time, Elon Musk. His face appeared on the screen, followed by clips of his revolutionary ventures, SpaceX rockets launching into the sky, Tesla's electric cars zooming across the highways, and his bold plans for the future. The camera zoomed in on Musk's intense expression, his mind seemingly always racing ahead of the curve. Elon Musk is known for his unconventional thinking. His ideas have reshaped industries, redefined the future, and challenged the limits of what's possible. But what if I told you that Musk believes in something even more unexpected, something so subtle, yet so powerful, it could be hidden in plain sight? The screen shifted again, this time showing an image of a cryptic diagram, a series of numbers, and a pattern that appeared at first glance to make no sense at all. Numbers, the voice continued, are not just abstract concepts. They are patterns. They are the framework of everything we experience. And according to Musk, the last digit of your birth year is one of those numbers. But here's the thing, the meaning of this number could shock you. The camera zoomed out, showing a woman sitting at a desk, her face illuminated by the glow of her laptop screen. She looked intrigued but skeptical, as if this idea was too strange to be true. Her name was Emma. At 29, she was exactly on the cusp of something big, or at least, that's what everyone told her. She had everything a person could want, a stable job, a loving boyfriend, and a supportive family. Yet, for some reason, she always felt like there was something missing. Something was off, like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. But even she couldn't deny the strange coincidence that kept creeping up in the back of her mind. Every time she saw a number, especially in the context of her life, her career, her relationships, even her favorite hobbies, she had a feeling that something was connecting. It wasn't until one random night when she was scrolling through social media that the idea fully planted itself in her mind. She stumbled across an article titled, "What Does the Last Digit of Your Birth Year Mean?" The title alone was enough to spark her curiosity. What could the last digit of my birth year possibly have to do with my future, she thought. But the more she read, the more intrigued she became. The article was filled with references to numerology, the ancient belief that numbers have mystical powers that influence our lives. The last digit of a person's birth year, it claimed, was a key indicator of their life path. And not just any path, a unique, personal journey that was directly influenced by this number. Emma couldn't believe what she was reading. The last digit of her birth year was a 6. According to the article, people born in years that end in 6 were destined for transformative change, often taking unconventional routes in life. They were described as people who had the power to make a significant impact on the world. But only if they embraced their unique talents and challenged the status quo. Could this be true? Emma whispered to herself as she closed the laptop, her mind buzzing with possibilities. What if the last digit of my birth year has been silently guiding me all along, and I've just never noticed? Her thoughts raced as she recalled moments from her life that seemed to align perfectly with the characteristics attributed to the number 6. She had always felt the pressure to succeed, to meet others' expectations, but deep down, she knew there was something more she was meant to do. She had an innate desire to challenge herself, to break free from the ordinary, and yet, she had always played it safe. But this was different. The article also mentioned Elon Musk again, referencing how his birth year, 1971, ended in 1. According to numerology, people born in years that ended in 1 were innovators, trailblazers, and pioneers, exactly the kinds of qualities Musk embodied. He was a living example of how a number could shape a person's destiny. And if Musk's success was any indication, then maybe there was something to this idea. Emma was hooked. But the more she thought about it, the more questions arose. How could something as simple as a number have such a profound impact on a person's life? Was it just coincidence, or was there something deeper at play? And why had no one ever mentioned this before? Do you believe in fate? The voiceover cut through Emma's thoughts, pulling her back into the present moment. The camera shifted back to the city, this time focusing on a man walking through the streets, lost in thought, unaware of the mystery swirling around him. You see, the voiceover continued, sometimes, it's the smallest things that have the greatest impact. A word spoken at just the right moment. A chance encounter that changes everything. And sometimes, it's a number. A number that seems insignificant, but holds the key to unlocking your true potential. The question lingered in the air. Could the last digit of your birth year really reveal something profound about who you are and who you are meant to become? Emma had to know. Stick around, the voiceover said, because in the next few minutes, you might just discover something about yourself that you never knew was there. But first, hit subscribe and leave a comment with your birth year. What's the last digit? Let's see if it aligns with your path. Who knows, this might just be the beginning of a new journey. As the screen faded to black, Emma's curiosity was piqued beyond belief. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to embark on something truly extraordinary. And little did she know, her journey was just beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emma sat at her kitchen table, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. The morning sunlight poured through the window, casting a soft glow over her small apartment. Yet, despite the peaceful surroundings, her mind was far from calm. She kept replaying the idea she had stumbled upon the night before, that the last digit of her birth year could somehow hold the key to her future. Emma had always been someone who loved routine. In her early 20s, she had checked off all the usual boxes: good grades, a degree in business, a stable job in marketing at a tech company, and even a nice apartment in the city. On paper, everything looked perfect. She had done everything society expected of her, and yet, she always felt like there was something missing. Her friends, especially Sarah, often teased her about her perfectionism. "You're doing great, Em. You've got the job, the apartment, the boyfriend. What's the problem? You don't want to be a full-time blogger or something, do you?" Sarah's words came with a laugh, but there was always a hint of concern behind them. Emma didn't want to admit it, but Sarah was right, she was playing it safe. Growing up, Emma's parents had always been the epitome of responsibility. Her father, a successful lawyer, had drilled into her the importance of hard work and achieving success the traditional way. "The world doesn't care about your feelings, Emma," he would say, his voice thick with authority. "Success is about results, not dreams." Her mother, a soft-spoken woman who had worked as a teacher, often supported her father's pragmatic outlook. "Emma, you have a bright future ahead of you. Don't waste it on daydreams," she would say, her voice gentle but firm. Emma loved her parents, but their expectations weighed heavily on her, like an invisible burden she could never shake off. She had always tried to live up to them. She had excelled in school, gone to a reputable college, and secured a well-paying job right out of graduation. But with each passing year, Emma felt less like herself. It was as though she was playing a role in someone else's life story, and the script was starting to feel more like a cage than a path to success. At 29, Emma felt like she was at a crossroads. She had everything that was supposed to make her happy: a steady career, a supportive boyfriend, and even a few vacation days to look forward to. But when she looked in the mirror, she didn't recognize herself. She had lost the fire that once drove her to pursue her passions. The spark was dimming, and Emma didn't know how to reignite it. It was a conversation with Sarah that finally pushed her to confront her unease. One night, after a few glasses of wine, Sarah had said, I know you're not happy. I can see it in your eyes. You've been going through the motions for so long. You deserve more than this, don't you? Those words had hit Emma like a ton of bricks. She had tried to dismiss them, but deep down, she knew Sarah was right. It was the first time she admitted to herself that she wasn't content with the life she was leading. But what was she supposed to do about it? She wasn't the type to just throw it all away and start over. Then came the article. As Emma leaned back in her chair, staring at her laptop screen in the dim light of her apartment, she couldn't help but feel a mix of disbelief and excitement. The last digit of her birth year, 6, meant something. At least, that's what the article claimed. The more she read, the more she felt a stirring deep within her. The number 6 symbolized change, transformation, and growth, but it wasn't an easy path. People born with a 6 were supposed to embrace their uniqueness, step out of their comfort zones, and make a difference. They were destined for greatness, but only if they could break free from the expectations that had been placed on them. Emma couldn't help but laugh at the irony. The article described her so perfectly, it was almost as though someone had written it just for her. She had always tried to fit into the mold that others had set for her, never fully embracing the wild, creative side of herself that she had tucked away. But now, the idea that her birth year, something so seemingly insignificant, could actually have a deeper meaning made her rethink everything. What if this is the sign I've been waiting for, she muttered under her breath, her eyes wide with realization. It was a strange, almost unsettling thought. Emma wasn't one to believe in astrology or numerology. In fact, she had always dismissed these ideas as nonsense, even mocking people who lived their lives by such beliefs. But the coincidence was too strong to ignore. For the first time in years, Emma felt a spark of hope, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. She glanced at the clock. It was late, but sleep was nowhere near her mind. She grabbed her phone and called Sarah. "Sarah, you're not going to believe this," Emma said, her voice tinged with excitement. "I just read something. I think it might be the answer to everything I've been feeling. It's about the last digit of your birth year. Mine's a 6, and it says that people with a 6 are destined for transformation." Sarah's laughter rang out on the other end of the line. "Are you serious? Emma, you're telling me you're buying into this numerology stuff now?" "I don't know," Emma replied, her voice shaky but hopeful. "It sounds crazy, but it actually makes sense. It's like it's telling me that I'm supposed to change, step outside the box and do something different." There was a pause on the other end of the line before Sarah responded. "Well, if anyone can change the game, it's you. Just don't get too carried away, okay? I love your energy, Em, but don't forget about your responsibilities." Emma smiled, knowing Sarah was only looking out for her. "I promise, I'm not going to do anything crazy. But something inside me is telling me that this is what I've been waiting for. It's time for a change." As Emma hung up, she felt a sense of peace settle over her for the first time in months. There was still a long way to go, and she didn't know exactly what the future held, but for the first time in years, she felt ready to step into the unknown. The last digit of her birth year was more than just a number. It was a symbol of what was to come, a reminder that change was possible, even if it meant breaking free from everything she had ever known. With a renewed sense of determination, Emma closed her laptop, got up from the table, and walked to the window. She looked out at the city, the lights shimmering in the night. The world seemed full of possibilities, and for the first time in a long while, Emma was ready to embrace them. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted inside her. The more she thought about the last digit of her birth year, the more she realized just how much her life had been dictated by the choices of others. She had spent years following the rules, conforming to expectations, and yet something was missing. A part of her had always known there was more to life than what she was experiencing. But now, with the revelation about the number 6, she felt a spark of hope igniting within her, a hope that maybe, just maybe, she could do something truly extraordinary. Something that wasn't just about meeting others' expectations, but something that would satisfy the deeper, hidden parts of her that longed for change. She needed to figure out what that change looked like. The next day, as Emma sat at her desk at work, the usual hum of the office felt almost suffocating. Her mind kept drifting back to the article she had read the night before, to the possibilities of what she could accomplish if she embraced her true potential. But her thoughts were interrupted by a tap on her shoulder. It was Mark, her boss, a no-nonsense kind of guy who always had his eye on productivity. "Emma, can we talk for a second?" She turned in her chair, her heart sinking slightly. Mark rarely called her into his office for anything good. "Sure," Emma replied, trying to mask her unease. "What's up?" Mark's expression was unreadable as he leaned against the doorframe. "We need to talk about your performance. I've been reviewing your work over the past few months, and frankly, I'm not seeing the same level of drive from you that I did when you first joined the company. I know things have been going well for you, but I'm concerned about your long-term commitment here." Emma felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "What do you mean?" "I've been meeting deadlines and handling my responsibilities." Mark raised an eyebrow. "That's just it, Emma. You've been meeting expectations, not exceeding them. You've been comfortable. And in this company, we don't settle for comfortable. We need people who are hungry, who are willing to take risks. I need you to step it up." Emma's mind raced. She wanted to explain that it wasn't about being comfortable, it was about feeling like she was doing something meaningful. But the words caught in her throat. Was this the universe's way of pushing her towards something bigger, or was it simply the cold reality of corporate life? Mark's voice broke through her thoughts. "I'm giving you a week to turn things around. I need to see initiative. If not, we might need to reconsider your position." The words hit Emma like a cold wave. The pressure she felt from her job, from her parents, and from her own expectations was mounting. Was she really ready to take the leap? To step outside of the life that had been so carefully constructed for her? Or was she going to fall back into the safe, predictable patterns she had lived by for so long? As Mark left her office, Emma sat there, staring at her computer screen, trying to find the answers to the questions swirling in her mind. The article about numerology, about the last digit of her birth year, echoed in her thoughts. Was she really destined for something greater? Was this the moment she had been waiting for? That evening, Emma sat at her apartment, trying to calm her nerves. She pulled out her journal and began writing, a habit she hadn't practiced in years. The pen glided across the paper, almost as if the words were coming from somewhere deep within her. "I need to make a change," she wrote. "I can't keep doing what everyone expects of me. I have to trust that there's more to life than what's right in front of me. But how do I make that leap?" As she wrote, a sense of clarity began to settle over her. She had always been so afraid of stepping outside her comfort zone, but the truth was, she had already been in this place before, the feeling of stagnation, of yearning for something more. And now, faced with a choice, she could either take the risk and change her life forever, or she could stay stuck, playing it safe, forever wondering what could have been. But it wasn't just the job. It wasn't just Mark's criticism. It was everything. It was the pressure she felt from her parents to stay on the predictable path, to continue playing the role of the dutiful daughter, the responsible worker. It was the fear of failure, of letting go of everything that had been so carefully crafted. The following day, Emma stood at the window of her office building, gazing out at the skyline, her mind awash with conflicting emotions. She was at a crossroads. A moment of choice. She had always played by the rules, but now those rules seemed to hold her back, trapping her in a life that wasn't truly hers. The question was no longer about whether she could change. The question was whether she was brave enough to do it. That night, she called Sarah again, needing someone to talk to. "Sarah," Emma said, her voice shaky, "I don't know what to do. Mark gave me an ultimatum at work. He says I need to step up, but the truth is, I'm not sure if I even want to be here anymore." I've been stuck in this routine, just going through the motions. But now, I don't know what's next. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Emma, it sounds like you're finally realizing what we've all known. You were never meant to be stuck in this box. You've always been so much more than this job, this routine. You have the power to change your path, to step into something bigger. Emma closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. But I don't know how to take that first step. What if I fail? What if I regret it? Sarah's voice was firm, yet filled with warmth. You can't live your life based on what-ifs. The only thing worse than failing is never trying at all. You have the opportunity to change things now, Em. Take it. Trust yourself. Emma hung up the phone, the weight of Sarah's words settling into her heart. She knew the path ahead wouldn't be easy. It would require courage, risk, and possibly even failure. But it was the only way she would ever find out who she truly was. The last digit of her birth year wasn't just a number. It was a sign, a symbol of what she was capable of. And now, the question wasn't whether she was ready for change, it was whether she would have the courage to face it head-on. The next few days were a blur of uncertainty and anticipation. Emma's mind was a battlefield, torn between the safe, predictable life she had always known and the wild, unknown future that beckoned her like a distant horizon. She found herself unable to focus on anything, even as she sat at her desk, staring at the screen of her laptop. Every email, every meeting, every task felt hollow, like she was just going through the motions. The decision she had made to embrace change was not as simple as she had hoped. Her conversation with Sarah, while comforting, had also left her with a sense of urgency. Time was running out. The ultimatum from Mark loomed over her like a dark cloud. But the bigger question was whether she would dare to defy the expectations that had been placed on her, not just by her boss, but by her family, society, and herself. She remembered the article, the one that had started it all. The words about the number 6 resonated with her still. It was more than just a number. It was a map of her soul, a call to action. Transformation. Growth. Risk. But the question was, how could she possibly begin? As she stood in front of her apartment mirror that morning, preparing for yet another day at work, Emma caught a glimpse of herself. The woman staring back at her was someone she barely recognized. She was dressed in her usual business attire, a tailored suit, sleek heels, and her hair pulled back into a neat ponytail. On the outside, she looked every bit the part of the successful professional she was supposed to be. But inside, she felt empty, like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Was this really all there was? She had everything she had been told to strive for: stability, success, security. Yet, for all her accomplishments, she felt like a stranger to herself. A fleeting thought crossed her mind: what would happen if I just walked away? It was absurd. She could never just leave her job, her life, her comfort zone. But could she? That afternoon, as she sat through another tiresome meeting, something shifted in her. Her mind wandered to the idea of change again, of starting fresh. She wondered what it would feel like to take a leap of faith, to let go of everything she knew, and to walk into the unknown. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a text from Sarah. You know you can do this, right? Don't let fear hold you back. Take the leap. I believe in you. Emma stared at the screen, feeling a rush of warmth. Could she really do it? Could she leave the life she had built for something different? She looked up at the conference room around her, filled with colleagues talking about their latest project. They were all so consumed by their tasks, so engrossed in the day-to-day grind, and for the first time, Emma realized how little she related to them. The thought of staying here, in this environment, made her feel suffocated. But what was on the other side? Could she really take the first step into something new? The future felt like a vast, empty space that both terrified and excited her. There was no road map, no clear destination, just the raw possibility of what could be. The following evening, Emma sat at her desk in her apartment, sorting through her thoughts and trying to make sense of it all. She had always been a planner, a person who lived in the comfort of certainty. But now, with every passing moment, she felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at the unknown. She pulled out her journal, the one she had started writing in a few days ago, and began to reflect. "What do I want?" she wrote. "What am I truly seeking? Is it success? No. Is it approval? Maybe, but that's not enough. I want freedom. I want the chance to live authentically. To stop hiding behind this mask of perfection and embrace my true self." She closed her eyes, thinking of all the times she had played it safe. The times she had followed the rules, ignored her dreams, and buried her real desires in favor of others' expectations. The weight of those decisions pressed down on her now, and for the first time, she didn't want to carry it any longer. But could she truly free herself from the expectations that had shaped her? From her family, her job, and the image of success she had spent so long building? It felt like an impossible task. As the night stretched on, Emma's resolve began to crystallize. She knew she couldn't keep living in this half-life. Something had to change. The next morning, Emma stood at the front door of her apartment, her coat draped over her arm. Her heart pounded in her chest, the nerves almost unbearable. Today was the day she would make her choice. She had already sent an email to Mark, requesting a meeting. She wasn't sure what she was going to say, but it didn't matter. The time had come to face her fears, to step into the unknown. As she walked to her car, her thoughts raced. Was this the right decision? Was she really ready to walk away from everything she had worked for? The questions swirled in her mind, but deep down, Emma knew there was no going back now. She could feel the weight of her birth year, the last digit, 6, pushing her forward. It was a symbol of transformation, of stepping into the unknown. It wasn't just a number. It was the key to unlocking her true potential. Emma arrived at the office, and as she sat down in front of Mark, she could feel the tension building. Mark's usual stern expression softened as he looked at her. "Emma, I've been reviewing your progress, and I'm quitting," Emma interrupted him, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. Mark's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "What? Are you sure?" Emma nodded, a strange sense of peace settling over her. "Yes. I've realized that I need to make a change. I can't keep going down this path, living someone else's life. I need to find my own way." There was a moment of silence as Mark processed her words. Finally, he sighed. "Well, I can't say I didn't see this coming. I wish you the best of luck, Emma. But I have to warn you, it won't be easy. It's a hard world out there." Emma met his gaze. "I'm ready for it." As she walked out of the office for the last time, Emma felt a weight lifting off her shoulders. The fear was still there, but it no longer controlled her. She had taken the first step. The unknown loomed ahead, but she was no longer afraid. She had the courage to step into it. And in that moment, Emma knew that this was only the beginning of her journey. The following days felt like a whirlwind to Emma. She had left her job, taken a leap of faith into the unknown, and now she was standing at the edge of a brand new chapter. There was a strange mix of excitement and fear pulsing through her veins. But one thing was for certain, there was no turning back now. She had made her choice. But what came next? The question lingered in her mind like a fog she couldn't shake. Emma had never been one to live without a plan, yet here she was, stepping into an abyss of uncertainty. She had no clear destination, no roadmap to guide her. The future was as blurry as it was tantalizing. It wasn't long before the consequences of her decision began to make themselves known. The first few days without her structured routine were liberating, but also daunting. Her savings were sufficient for a while, but Emma knew she couldn't survive on them forever. She needed to find something that would give her a sense of purpose, something that aligned with the core of who she was. Her phone buzzed one morning as she sipped her coffee, lost in her thoughts. It was a message from Sarah. "Are you okay? I've been thinking about you." Emma smiled at the message, but the smile didn't last long. The excitement she had initially felt was beginning to fade, replaced by an underlying anxiety. She had taken the plunge, but now she felt like she was floating in an ocean, without a paddle, drifting further away from the shore. "I don't know," she typed back. "I feel free, but I also feel lost. I don't know what I'm doing." A moment later, Sarah replied, "That's normal. You're on a new path. It's okay not to have all the answers right now. The journey itself will teach you what you need to know." Emma stared at the words, unsure whether to feel comforted or more unsure than ever. The unknown was just that, unknown. It was exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. She had no idea where it would lead, but somehow, she felt like this was the moment that would define the rest of her life. The next few days were a blur of job searches, networking events, and long walks that left Emma more uncertain than before. She had always believed that if you worked hard enough, success would follow. But now, she found herself questioning everything she had ever believed. Was success really what she had been chasing all along? Or was it something deeper, something more personal? One afternoon, as Emma sat in a quiet coffee shop, sipping her latte and scrolling through job listings on her laptop, a notification popped up on her screen. It was an email from her old mentor, Adrian, a man who had been a guiding force in her early career. He had been the one to recommend her for the job at her old company, the one who had always pushed her to aim higher, to never settle. She hesitated for a moment before opening it. "Emma, I hope this message finds you well. I've been thinking a lot about you lately, especially since you left your position. I know you've always been someone who strives for excellence, but I wanted to offer you a different perspective. There's something bigger than the career you've been pursuing. It's something that takes courage to face, but it's the kind of thing that will set you free. I've been working on a project that I think you'd be perfect for. Let's talk soon." Emma read the email again, and then a third time. What was he talking about? Adrian had always been practical, driven by results and logic. He had never spoken like this before, so vague, so philosophical. It was as though he knew something she didn't, something that could change everything. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she immediately typed back, "Adrian, I don't know what this project is, but I'd love to hear more about it. Let's meet." The following day, Emma met Adrian at a quiet restaurant, a place they had visited many times during their professional relationship. He had always been the type to wear a well-fitted suit, his appearance neat and polished, projecting an image of someone in control. But today, there was something different about him. He was wearing a more relaxed outfit, jeans, a casual blazer, and a contemplative look on his face. They exchanged pleasantries before Adrian dove straight into the conversation. "You're wondering why I reached out, aren't you?" he asked, his eyes sharp yet gentle. Emma nodded. "Yeah, to be honest, I am. You've always been about results and strategies, so it feels different." Adrian smiled, leaning back in his chair. "That's because it is different, Emma. I've spent the last few months working on a project that's about more than just business, it's about personal transformation. I know you're struggling right now, trying to figure out your next move. But what if I told you that this project could give you the opportunity to change your life in ways you never thought possible?" Emma felt her heart skip a beat. "What do you mean?" Adrian paused, choosing his words carefully. "This project is about unlocking your full potential. It's not just about finding a new job, Emma. It's about finding yourself. About stepping into a role that reflects who you are at the core, not who everyone else expects you to be." Emma's pulse quickened. The words seemed to reverberate in her mind. Unlocking her full potential. Finding herself. Was this what she had been searching for all along? "Adrian," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I don't know if I'm ready for something like that. He leaned in, his eyes locked with hers. No one is ever ready for change, Emma. But that's the point. You've already taken the first step. The hard part is over. Now, it's time to step into the unknown and let it shape you. Emma felt a shiver run down her spine. Could this be the moment she had been waiting for? The revelation that everything she thought she knew was wrong, that the key to her true happiness was not in following the prescribed path, but in forging her own way, on her own terms. The idea was terrifying, but exhilarating. Later that evening, as Emma sat alone in her apartment, her mind raced. The weight of Adrian's words hung in the air. She had made a choice, and now, that choice was opening up a door to a future she hadn't even imagined. But that door wasn't just about professional success. It was about discovering who she truly was, beyond the labels and the expectations. Emma stared at the reflection in the mirror once again, this time with a deeper understanding. She wasn't the person who had walked out of her office a few days ago. She was someone new, someone ready to face the challenges ahead, ready to embrace the unknown. The emotional climax was here, and Emma knew that what lay ahead was nothing short of life-changing. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The weeks following Emma's meeting with Adrian were a whirlwind of self-discovery. What began as a simple conversation about a project turned into something far more profound, a journey into understanding herself, her desires, and the life she truly wanted to lead. Adrian's words had opened a door, but now, Emma had to decide whether she was ready to walk through it. The project Adrian had spoken of wasn't like any corporate job she'd ever known. It wasn't about climbing a ladder or proving herself to others. No, this was something deeper, more transformative. It was an opportunity to blend her passions with her skills in a way that felt authentic and true to her spirit. But the catch? It wasn't guaranteed to succeed, and it required vulnerability, risk, and the willingness to fail. It was a hard pill to swallow. For the first time, Emma understood what Adrian had meant. This wasn't just about making a living. It was about making a life that was hers to create. And that scared her more than anything else. The first few days after agreeing to join Adrian's project were filled with a sense of excitement, but also uncertainty. Adrian had introduced her to a team of individuals who were also on a similar journey, people who had taken risks in their lives and had chosen to pursue something different, something more aligned with their personal values. They were all chasing purpose, not just paychecks. As Emma worked alongside them, she began to feel something shift inside her. The rigid, scripted version of success she had always adhered to began to crumble. For the first time, she was surrounded by people who weren't just interested in her professional achievements, they were interested in her ideas, her voice, her story. They encouraged her to explore her creativity, to look beyond the safe paths and instead create her own. And the more she did, the more she realized how much she had been holding back all these years. Every day, Emma grew more connected to herself. She began taking up new hobbies, exploring new interests, and most importantly, challenging herself to think outside the box. Adrian's mentorship became a guiding force, not only for her career but for her life. He pushed her to question everything she thought she knew and to approach each challenge with a mindset of growth. In one of their many conversations, Adrian asked her a question that stayed with her long after it was asked. "Emma, what is it that you want, beyond the safety and security? What do you think you're truly capable of if you stripped away all the expectations?" The question haunted her, echoing in her mind at night, in quiet moments. What was it that she truly wanted? Deep down, she knew. It was freedom. Freedom from the rules, freedom from the expectations, and most importantly, freedom to be who she truly was. As the months went by, Emma found herself in a completely different place, both professionally and personally. The fear of failure, the anxiety of not knowing what came next, all of that had slowly dissipated. She had realized that the path to success wasn't linear, nor was it predictable. It was a winding road with twists and turns, and sometimes, the road less traveled led to the greatest discoveries. Her work with Adrian and the team had already begun to bear fruit. They had launched a new initiative that was gaining traction, one that combined technology, creativity, and social impact. But more than that, Emma had found her place in it. She wasn't just a cog in the machine anymore, she was a creator, an innovator, someone whose contributions truly mattered. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. But the most significant change wasn't what she was doing, it was who she had become. Emma had grown. She had stepped out of her comfort zone and embraced the unknown, and in doing so, she had discovered the courage and resilience that had always been inside her. On a crisp autumn afternoon, Emma stood at the window of her new apartment, looking out over the city. The view was breathtaking, the skyline glowing in the soft, golden light of the setting sun. A year ago, she had never imagined herself here. A year ago, she had been stuck in the corporate grind, playing it safe, following a path that wasn't truly her own. But now, she felt a sense of peace, a sense of freedom she had never known. As her thoughts drifted, Emma remembered the day she had walked out of her job, the uncertainty, the fear, the sense of not knowing where her life was headed. She had taken a leap into the unknown, unsure of what awaited her. And now, looking back, she realized that the journey had been worth it. In the distance, she could see a group of people gathering in the park, laughing, talking, living in the moment. Emma smiled. She had learned to embrace the present, to live fully in each moment without worrying so much about the future. Later that evening, Emma received a call from Sarah. "Emma, I just wanted to check in. How are you feeling?" Sarah's voice was warm and reassuring, as always. "I'm good," Emma replied, her smile evident in her tone. "I'm really good. I'm so proud of you. I knew you had it in you." Emma laughed softly. "I don't think I believed it myself until recently." There was a pause on the other end of the line before Sarah spoke again. "You know, I was thinking about what you said that day, about the number 6 and what it means. It's funny, isn't it? You've always been a planner, a perfectionist. But the number 6 is about transformation. It's about embracing change, letting go of the old and stepping into the new. And look at you now. You're living that." Emma's heart swelled with gratitude. Sarah had always been there for her, encouraging her even when she doubted herself. "It's strange," Emma said. "But I feel like everything is falling into place. I've found a new sense of direction, and it's so much more than I ever expected." "Well," Sarah said with a grin in her voice, "I think you're exactly where you're meant to be." Emma looked out the window again, at the world bustling outside, and for the first time in a long while, she felt at peace. She had found her way. She had found herself. The journey that had started with a single step into the unknown had led Emma to a place she never imagined. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt, fear, and uncertainty. But each challenge, each obstacle, had been an opportunity to grow, to evolve. And in the end, Emma had discovered the one thing she had been searching for all along, the courage to live authentically and to embrace the beautiful, unpredictable adventure that life truly was. As the night fell, Emma whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." And in that moment, she knew she was right. It had been several months since Emma had made the life-changing decision to leave her old job and take on a new project with Adrian. Her life had transformed in ways she never expected, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. But as much as she had embraced this new path, the unexpected was always lurking just around the corner. It began with a phone call, one that would throw Emma's life back into turmoil in a way she couldn't have anticipated. It was from Adrian. "Emma, I need you to sit down for this." Adrian's voice was stern and tinged with urgency, a rare shift in his usually composed demeanor. "There's been a major setback with the project. One of our major investors has backed out, and now we have to completely rethink our strategy." Emma felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The project had been growing steadily, gaining momentum. They were on the verge of something big, something revolutionary. And now, it seemed like everything was unraveling. "What do you mean?" Emma asked, her voice trembling slightly. "We've worked so hard to get here. What happened?" Adrian sighed. "It's complicated, but it boils down to a shift in priorities. The investor no longer believes in the direction we're headed, and without their support, we're facing some serious financial challenges." Emma couldn't process what she was hearing. All of the optimism she had felt over the past few months suddenly felt like a distant memory. It was hard to reconcile the sense of possibility with the harsh reality of uncertainty that was now staring her in the face. "We're not giving up," Adrian continued, sensing her frustration. "But we need to be creative, adaptable. This is where the real challenge begins. Are you with me?" There was a long pause as Emma stared out the window, the weight of the conversation sinking in. She had never imagined that the road she had chosen would have so many hurdles. But Adrian was right, this was a challenge, and it was the kind of challenge that would either break her or shape her into something stronger. "I'm with you," Emma finally said, her voice steady. "Let's figure this out." For the next few weeks, Emma and the team worked tirelessly to come up with a new plan. They brainstormed, reworked their ideas, and sought new sources of funding. The stress was overwhelming, and the pressure mounted every day. But throughout it all, Emma couldn't help but feel a strange sense of purpose. She had been through tough times before, but this felt different. This was no longer just about the project, it was about proving to herself that she could navigate through uncertainty and come out the other side stronger. Adrian, ever the strategist, guided the team through the chaos. But Emma's role was beginning to evolve. She wasn't just contributing ideas, she was becoming the one who held the group together. When tensions ran high and doubts crept in, Emma was the one to step up and remind everyone why they were doing this. Her belief in the project and in herself was contagious. Slowly but surely, the team began to rally, pushing forward with a renewed sense of determination. But it wasn't easy. There were moments when Emma felt like she was drowning, moments when she questioned if she had the strength to keep going. And then there was the emotional toll. She had gotten so close to the team, and now, seeing them all struggle, it weighed heavily on her. Each setback felt personal. Each failure felt like her own. One evening, after a particularly grueling meeting, Emma found herself alone in her apartment, staring at the blank wall. The city outside was quiet, but inside her head, the noise was deafening. She felt overwhelmed, exhausted, and unsure of what came next. But then, something shifted. She stood up, walked over to her window, and looked out at the city. The same city that had once felt like a maze of obstacles now felt like a canvas of endless possibilities. The challenges, the setbacks, the disappointments, they were part of the process. She had come this far, hadn't she? She had left her old life behind and stepped into the unknown, and now she had to face the reality that success was never guaranteed. It was always going to be messy. But that didn't mean it wasn't worth pursuing. The next day, Emma returned to the team with a new resolve. She approached Adrian with a fresh idea, something that hadn't been considered before. It wasn't a guarantee of success, but it was something bold, something that could take them in a new direction, away from the dead ends they had been hitting. Adrian listened carefully, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he took a long pause, then said, "It's risky, but I like it. Let's do it." The following weeks were a blur of frantic planning, long hours, and tough decisions. But as the days passed, Emma began to see a shift. The team began to embrace her idea, slowly but surely seeing the potential in what had once seemed like an impossible situation. And as they worked together, Emma realized that this was more than just a test of her professional abilities. This was a test of her character. The challenges she faced weren't meant to break her, they were meant to teach her resilience, adaptability, and the power of belief. As the team reached a critical juncture, they finally secured new investors. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight, but their collective effort paid off. The project was back on track, and Emma felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. But more than that, she felt a sense of peace. She had faced her fears, confronted her doubts, and come out stronger for it. And as she stood at the threshold of this new chapter, she realized something important. The setbacks, the challenges, the moments of uncertainty, they weren't obstacles. They were opportunities to learn, to grow, and to prove to herself that she could handle whatever came her way. The road to success was never a straight line. It was a series of twists and turns, of moments where you questioned everything and wondered if you had made the right choice. But it was also a journey that revealed parts of yourself you never knew existed. It was a journey that, no matter how difficult, was worth taking. Later that evening, Emma received another call from Sarah. "So, how's it going?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with curiosity. "It's going," Emma said, a smile tugging at her lips. "It's been tough, but I think we're turning a corner." Sarah laughed softly. "I knew you could do it." Emma's smile grew wider. "I wasn't sure for a while. But now, I know that all the challenges were just part of the process. They were never meant to stop me." Sarah's voice was warm with pride. "Exactly. You've come so far, Emma. I'm so proud of you." And for the first time in a long while, Emma believed it. As the city lights flickered below, Emma stood in front of the window once again, looking out at the vast horizon. She had come so far, and there was still so much to do. But one thing was certain, whatever came next, she was ready. She had proven to herself that she could face anything that life threw her way, and she had learned that the journey was just as important as the destination. And for the first time, she was excited to see what the future held. Just when Emma thought things were starting to settle into a new rhythm, life threw her yet another curveball. This time, it wasn't a setback with investors or internal project struggles. No, this time, it was personal. One chilly morning in early spring, as Emma sat at her desk, sipping her coffee, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. At first, she hesitated, another sales call, no doubt, but something told her to answer. "Emma, it's Sarah," came the voice on the other end. Emma straightened, hearing the urgency in her best friend's voice. "What's wrong?" she asked, her heart already racing. Sarah never sounded like this, not unless something serious was going on. I don't know how to say this," Sarah faltered, her voice breaking. "It's your mom. She's been in an accident." Emma's world seemed to stop. Her mother, the person who had always been there to hold her hand during the toughest times, was in danger. The pain of those words hit Emma in the chest like a physical blow. Her mind began to race. Was she okay? How bad was it? Was this something that could change everything? When did it happen? Emma asked, her voice barely audible, as she tried to piece together her thoughts. "They're at the hospital. I don't have all the details, but you need to get there, Emma. You need to come home," Sarah's voice quivered. Without even thinking, Emma grabbed her coat and her keys, throwing them into her bag before heading out of her apartment. She felt the weight of the moment, like the entire world had suddenly shifted, and she was caught in the undertow of uncertainty and fear. All the growth, all the success she had worked so hard to achieve, suddenly seemed insignificant in comparison to what she was about to face. As she hurried through the city streets to the airport, Emma couldn't help but reflect on everything that had led her to this point. She had come so far, learned so much, but nothing could have prepared her for the moment she was now facing. Life, it seemed, had a way of throwing the unexpected in your path when you least expected it. When Emma arrived at the hospital hours later, the atmosphere was heavy. The sterile smell of antiseptic, the hushed voices of doctors and nurses, it was all too familiar. But there was no comfort in it this time. Her heart was racing as she made her way to the ICU, where her mom was being treated. As she walked through the cold hallway, Sarah met her at the door, her face pale and drawn. "She's still unconscious," Sarah explained, her voice barely a whisper. "The doctors said it was a miracle she's even alive, Emma. It's so much worse than we thought." Emma's world began to crumble. Her mother, the woman who had been a constant in her life, a source of unwavering love and support, was now fighting for her life. The tears welled up in Emma's eyes, but she forced herself to keep them at bay. She had to be strong. For her mom. For the family. Sarah took Emma's hand, leading her into the ICU room where her mother lay hooked up to machines, her frail body surrounded by beeping monitors. Emma's heart shattered as she took in the sight of her mom, unrecognizable, so fragile, so still. "Mom," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. She reached for her mother's hand, feeling the coldness of her skin. She didn't know what to say, how to even process this moment. It felt like everything she had worked for, every ounce of hope she had built in her own life, suddenly seemed so small and insignificant in the face of something this enormous. What good was success if the people you loved were suffering? The days that followed were a blur of hospital visits, sleepless nights, and emotional exhaustion. Emma found herself alternating between moments of numbness and intense grief. Her mother's condition remained critical, and the doctors were uncertain of her prognosis. It was a waiting game now, a fight against time. During this period, Emma's mind kept wandering back to the lessons she had learned over the past year. She had stepped into the unknown with Adrian's project. She had taken risks, embraced vulnerability, and found a sense of purpose and fulfillment she never thought possible. But now, in the face of her mother's illness, she realized something fundamental: life was unpredictable. The greatest successes could be overshadowed by the smallest of personal crises. And yet, through all of the turmoil, Emma felt a deeper understanding of her journey. Life was fragile. And in the end, it wasn't the projects, the titles, or the accolades that mattered, it was the relationships, the love, and the connection we had with the people closest to us. One night, after a particularly long day, Emma sat by her mother's bedside, holding her hand as the machines beeped steadily in the background. She felt her heart ache as if it were a physical weight pressing down on her chest. But there was also something else, a quiet strength that seemed to rise from deep within her. Her mother had always been her greatest supporter. It was her mother who had encouraged her to pursue her dreams, even when the road seemed impossible. It was her mother who had stood by her, cheering her on every step of the way. And now, Emma was being asked to step into that role, to be the pillar of strength for her mom. With that realization came a deep resolve. Emma knew what she had to do. It wasn't just about the business anymore. It wasn't just about the project. It was about showing up for the people she loved, about being present and steadfast, no matter what the future held. As the days stretched on, Emma kept vigil at her mother's side. She learned more about the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment. She called Adrian and let him know what was happening, explaining that she needed to step back from the project for a while. Adrian, ever supportive, told her to take all the time she needed. Her mother's condition improved slowly but steadily, and eventually, she woke up. It was a miracle, the doctors said. There was still a long road to recovery ahead, but the worst was over. Emma felt a wave of relief flood through her as her mother's eyes fluttered open and she squeezed her hand, whispering her name. "Mom," Emma said, her voice choked with emotion. "You're going to be okay. We're going to be okay." Her mother smiled faintly, and for the first time in weeks, Emma allowed herself to feel hope again. As the weeks passed, Emma's life began to find balance again. Her mother's recovery continued, and while there were still many obstacles ahead, Emma knew that the true measure of success wasn't in how much she achieved but in how much she was willing to give of herself to those she loved. And so, with a new perspective and a deeper sense of purpose, Emma prepared to return to the project. The road ahead would be challenging, yes, but she now knew that she could face anything, as long as she held on to what truly mattered. For the first time, Emma was no longer chasing an elusive idea of success. She was living a life grounded in love, resilience, and the understanding that the greatest adventures often came when you least expected them. It had been nearly 2 months since Emma's mother had woken up, and though the recovery process was slow, Emma found herself embracing a new kind of strength. The emotional roller coaster she'd been through had given her a sense of perspective she hadn't had before. Life was unpredictable. Sometimes heart-wrenchingly so, but it was also beautiful in its ability to surprise and push us to grow. With her mother on the mend, Emma had returned to the project with renewed energy. But this time, she was different. She had learned that her drive for success couldn't be the only force guiding her anymore. She needed balance. She needed to trust herself and her team. And most importantly, she needed to believe that she could face whatever came next, no matter how daunting it seemed. Adrian had been incredibly supportive through all of it, often checking in to make sure she was ready to jump back into the grind. "Emma, I know things have been tough," he said one morning, sipping his coffee as they stood together in the conference room. "But now that you're back, I need to ask, how are you really feeling about all this? Are you in?" Emma looked at him, the question heavy on her mind. She had faced so many obstacles in the past few months, and yet, here she was, standing on the brink of something potentially huge. "I am," she said finally. "But this time, I'm not just in it for the project. I'm in it for the people. For the team. We've all been through a lot, and we've come so far. Now, it's about making sure we don't just achieve something incredible, we do it in a way that we can be proud of." Adrian nodded thoughtfully. "That's exactly what I've been thinking, too. We've all got skin in the game now. It's not just about the bottom line, it's about the impact we're making. Let's keep that in mind as we push forward." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. With a new clarity of purpose, Emma and Adrian began to refocus the team. They worked late nights and weekends, brainstorming new ideas, revisiting their approach, and pushing the boundaries of what they thought was possible. They had weathered storms, personal and professional, and now, it felt like they were building something that was truly meaningful. However, just as things seemed to be falling into place, the team faced a new challenge, one that would test everything Emma had learned about resilience. It all started when the major competitor in their field launched a new product, one that was eerily similar to what Emma and her team had been developing. The news hit hard, like a gut punch. Adrian called an emergency meeting to discuss their next move. "This is a game changer," Adrian said as he paced back and forth in the conference room. "They've essentially beaten us to the punch, and we need to figure out how to pivot quickly before we're left behind." Emma felt a sense of panic rising within her. They had worked so hard on their product, invested so much time and energy, only for their competitor to steal their thunder. Was this the end of their dream? Had they already missed their chance? How could they have known what we were working on? Emma asked, her voice a mixture of frustration and disbelief. "I thought we were ahead of the game." Adrian stopped pacing and turned to her. "We were. But they're big players in the field, and they have access to resources we don't. We need to be smarter, faster. And we need to look at this as an opportunity, not a setback." Emma's heart raced. She had been through so much in the last few months, emotional turmoil, uncertainty, and now this. It felt like a constant uphill battle. But she knew that Adrian was right. They couldn't let this defeat them. It wasn't about whether they had been outpaced by their competitor, it was about how they responded to the challenge. "Okay," Emma said, taking a deep breath. "What's the next step?" Adrian smiled, the weight of the moment lifting just a bit. "We get creative. We focus on what sets us apart and double down on that. If they think they've won, they don't know what we're really capable of. We're not just going to match them, we're going to exceed them. We're going to make sure our product is something that people can't ignore." Over the next few weeks, the pressure on the team intensified. Emma often found herself working late into the night, trying to find a way to take their product to the next level. The team was motivated, but there was a tension in the air, a sense of urgency that was palpable. In the midst of this, Emma found herself pulling away from Adrian a little. She wasn't sure why, but she started to feel a sense of distance between them. She had been so focused on the project and the team that she didn't realize how much she had been neglecting her own feelings. One evening, after a particularly grueling brainstorming session, Emma found herself alone in the office. She sat at her desk, staring at the screen, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. The pressure was mounting, and she knew that the stakes were higher than ever. As she sat there, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. "How are you holding up?" Emma smiled, feeling a surge of warmth at her friend's thoughtfulness. She quickly typed a response, "It's tough. But I'm pushing through. Just hoping all this work pays off." She leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes for a moment. The weight of the situation was heavy, but she knew she had to keep going. She had come this far, and she wasn't about to let anything, or anyone, stop her now. Days later, Emma received the news that would change everything. Their team had successfully finalized a feature that would set their product apart from the competition. It was a breakthrough. A unique, innovative aspect that no one else had been able to replicate. The excitement in the air was palpable as the news spread through the office. "Emma, you did it," Adrian said, his voice filled with awe and pride. "This is the game changer we've been looking for." Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. The pressure, the doubt, the sleepless nights, it had all led to this moment. She had believed in the project, in herself, and in the team. And now, that belief was paying off. As the team celebrated their success, Emma looked around the room, a sense of fulfillment settling over her. They had overcome every obstacle, every challenge. And now, they were on the brink of something bigger than they had ever imagined. But as she stood there, watching her team, she knew that the real victory wasn't just the product. It was the journey. The growth. The resilience. And, most of all, the people who had stood by her through it all. The project was far from over, but Emma had learned something invaluable through all the setbacks and triumphs. It wasn't the destination that mattered, it was the strength, determination, and connection that defined the journey. And that, Emma realized, was the real success. The months that followed were a blur of rapid development, late nights, and strategic pivots. The team's hard work paid off when their product was finally launched, and the results exceeded even their wildest expectations. It was a success, yes, but it was more than that. It was a testament to their resilience, their ability to adapt, and their unwavering belief in their mission. Emma stood on stage at the product launch event, looking out at the audience of investors, tech experts, and media representatives. It was a moment she had imagined countless times, but now that it was happening, it felt surreal. The adrenaline coursed through her veins as the lights dimmed and the spotlight fell on her. As she stepped up to the podium, her thoughts briefly flickered back to everything that had brought her to this point, the sacrifices, the setbacks, the unexpected turns of fate. She had faced immense challenges in her personal life, her professional life, and everything in between. But in this moment, none of that mattered. The only thing that mattered was the people in front of her, and the vision she was about to share. "This is a product that's not just about innovation," Emma began, her voice steady despite the nerves running through her. "It's about connection. It's about creating something that empowers people to do more, to be more. It's a reflection of everything we've learned, everything we've faced. And it's only the beginning." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. The room was silent, everyone hanging on to every syllable. "We've worked tirelessly to bring this vision to life. And now, it's time for all of you to see it. Let's change the world, together." The crowd erupted into applause, and Emma couldn't help but smile. It was a moment of triumph, a culmination of everything she and her team had fought for. But even as the applause echoed in her ears, Emma felt a deeper truth settle within her: this was just one chapter in a much larger story. Later that evening, after the launch party had wound down and the team had celebrated their victory, Emma found herself alone in her office. She leaned back in her chair, staring out the window at the city below. The lights of the skyline flickered like a constellation of endless possibilities. It was an exhilarating view, one she had worked so hard to earn. But as she gazed out over the city, Emma's thoughts began to wander. What came next? They had achieved something remarkable, but the journey wasn't over. The tech world was ever-changing, and she knew that in order to stay ahead, they would have to keep innovating, evolving, and pushing the boundaries. The pressure was constant, but now, Emma had a new perspective on it. She had learned the hard way that success was never guaranteed. It could slip through your fingers in an instant if you didn't stay focused. But she also knew that the most important thing wasn't the constant race to the top. It was the strength to keep going when things got tough. It was the ability to embrace the unknown and find the courage to leap into it. Emma thought back to her conversation with Adrian, just days before the launch, when he had asked her if she was truly ready for the future. "Are you in this for the long haul, Emma?" Adrian had asked, his expression serious. "Because this isn't just a one-time thing. We've set a new standard, but that means we'll be pushing ourselves to exceed it every single day. Are you ready for that?" At the time, Emma had nodded, confident in her answer. But now, in the quiet of her office, with the weight of everything they had accomplished pressing down on her, she took a moment to truly reflect on his words. Was she ready for the future? Was she ready for the constant cycle of reinvention and innovation? The answer, she realized, wasn't just about her ambition or her drive, it was about her ability to build a sustainable future for the people around her. Her team. Her family. The ones who had been there when she had nothing, when everything seemed impossible. The next morning, as Emma arrived at the office, she was greeted with a flurry of activity. Everyone was in high spirits after the successful launch, but there was a renewed sense of urgency as well. They had made waves, but now it was time to make an even bigger impact. Adrian was already at his desk when she walked in. He looked up from his screen and smiled. "So, what do you think? Did we change the game?" Emma smiled back, feeling a sense of camaraderie she hadn't fully appreciated until now. "We did. But now, let's figure out how to change it again." They both laughed, but Emma's mind was already racing ahead. She could feel the weight of what was to come, the constant evolution of their product, the relentless pace of the industry. But she wasn't afraid. Not anymore. She knew that if they stayed true to their vision and kept working together, they could overcome any obstacle. Later that week, Emma received an email that would mark the beginning of another new chapter. It was from a renowned tech company, one that had taken an interest in their product and was offering to partner with them on a global scale. The potential was enormous, and it was clear that this was the opportunity they had been working toward. Emma felt a rush of excitement mixed with a sense of caution. This was the moment that could propel them to the next level, but it also meant scaling in ways she hadn't yet imagined. The challenges were bigger than ever, but so were the possibilities. She called Adrian to discuss it. "This could change everything," she said, her voice both eager and uncertain. "But we have to be sure it's the right move. We can't just jump at the first opportunity." Adrian was quiet for a moment, then replied, "Let's take a look at the details, figure out what it means for the long term, and then make a decision. But whatever happens, Emma, we've already come so far. We've built something real." Emma nodded, feeling both the weight and the excitement of what lay ahead. "Yeah," she said softly. "We have." The weeks that followed were a blur of meetings, negotiations, and strategy sessions. Emma found herself once again juggling the demands of her business with the demands of her personal life. But now, with everything that had happened in the past year, she felt stronger than ever. The lessons from the past had shaped her into someone who could face the unknown with confidence, and who could lean on her team when the road got tough. As Emma and Adrian finalized the details of the partnership, Emma couldn't help but think back to the question that had started it all: what does the last digit of your birth year mean? It wasn't just about fate or luck, she realized. It was about the choices we make, the way we respond to the challenges in front of us, and the people we choose to bring with us along the way. Life would continue to throw obstacles their way, but with every challenge, they had the power to reshape their destiny. And that, Emma realized, was the real power of innovation, not just the products they created, but the people they became along the way. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when Emma received the email that would change everything. As the glow of the computer screen illuminated her face, she read the message carefully, taking in every word. It was a final offer, a collaboration opportunity with Elon Musk SpaceX, a proposal that seemed too surreal to believe. The email outlined a potential partnership that would elevate their project to new heights, offering global exposure and access to cutting-edge technology. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to propel everything they had built into the stratosphere. Emma sat back in her chair, staring at the screen, her mind racing. The world was changing faster than she could keep up with, and here she was, on the brink of an entirely new frontier. Her first instinct was to call Adrian. No one had been with her through the highs and lows like he had, and she needed his perspective. "Adrian," she said when he picked up the phone, her voice trembling with excitement. "You're not going to believe this. Hold on, you're telling me that SpaceX is offering us a partnership?" Adrian's voice was a mix of awe and disbelief. That's huge, Emma. This is the opportunity we've been working toward." Emma leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment. "I know. But it's more than just business. It's a whole new world, one that feels almost too big for us to take on. I mean, working with SpaceX. That's next-level stuff." Adrian's laugh was full of excitement. "Next level is exactly where we need to be. You've built something incredible, and now it's time to take it to the next stage. We've overcome every challenge so far. This is just the beginning, Emma." The decision to move forward with the partnership wasn't an easy one. Emma spent countless nights in deep thought, reflecting on everything that had led to this moment. The countless sleepless nights, the personal sacrifices, the failures and triumphs. She had come so far, and now she had a chance to make a lasting impact on the world. But was she ready for what that would mean? As the days passed, Emma came to a profound realization. Success had never been about the destination, it was about the journey, the people she had met, and the lessons she had learned along the way. It was about building something that would outlast her, something that could inspire others to dream big, to push the limits of what was possible. And that was what this partnership with SpaceX could do. In the end, it wasn't about fear. It wasn't about hesitation. It was about vision. The vision she had once had all those years ago when she first embarked on this journey. She had always wanted to make a difference. Now, she had the opportunity to do it on a scale that was beyond anything she had ever imagined. The meeting with Elon Musk and his team took place a few weeks later. Emma was nervous, but there was a calm confidence within her. She had been through so much, and she had come out stronger each time. There was no turning back now. The team at SpaceX was eager to hear about her project, and she was ready to share the vision that had driven her from the very beginning. As they sat around the conference table, Elon Musk sat at the head, his usual casual demeanor at odds with the gravity of the moment. "I've seen a lot of pitches in my day," he said with a smile, leaning back in his chair. "But I have to admit, what you've built here is impressive. We're interested in how we can help take it to the next level." Emma felt a rush of adrenaline. This was it, the moment that could change everything. "Thank you, Mr. Musk," she said, her voice steady. "Our vision has always been to create something that empowers people, that opens new possibilities. We believe that with your support, we can make a global impact, not just in tech, but in people's lives. Together, we can help pave the way for innovation that changes the world." Elon nodded thoughtfully, his piercing gaze fixed on her. "That's exactly the kind of mentality we need. We're looking for partners who think big. I think we can make something extraordinary together." The conversation turned to specifics, and the excitement in the room was palpable. Emma could hardly believe what was happening. This was the culmination of everything she had worked for, everything she had fought through. It was all coming together in ways she had never imagined. As the meeting wrapped up, Elon extended his hand, a genuine smile on his face. "I look forward to seeing what we can achieve together, Emma. Let's make history." In the weeks that followed, the partnership with SpaceX became official. The project was elevated to new heights, attracting the attention of investors, innovators, and visionaries from all corners of the globe. The team expanded, new ideas flowed, and the scope of their work grew exponentially. Emma was both exhilarated and humbled by the rapid progress, and she felt more alive than ever before. But even with all the success, there was one thing that kept haunting her thoughts, the question that had always lingered in the back of her mind. What does the last digit of your birth year mean? For so long, Emma had wondered about the significance of that one number. It had become a symbol for her of fate, of destiny, of something greater than herself. But now, as she stood on the edge of this new chapter, she realized that the answer wasn't a number, it was the choices she made along the way. The risks she took. The people she trusted. The dreams she had chased. In the end, the last digit of her birth year didn't hold the power. She did. It was the strength, determination, and resilience within her that had brought her to this point. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that this was just the beginning. There was so much more to achieve, so much more to build, and so many more lives to touch. As Emma sat back in her office one final time, reflecting on everything she had accomplished, she smiled. She had come so far, from a young woman with a dream to a leader on the verge of changing the world. The road hadn't been easy, and it still wouldn't be. But she had learned that no matter what, she had the strength to keep moving forward. And so, as the world continued to change, Emma knew that her story was far from over. It was just the beginning of something even greater, a new chapter, a new era, and a new way of thinking. The journey was only beginning. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?